Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. You may notice the conspicuous absence of intro music. That's because Murphy hates me, and so does Windows. I did an update last night, a Windows update, and now nothing fucking works. So, apologies, although those of you getting the uploaded podcast version later will get all that fun stuff because I get to edit it in later. But anyway, joining us all the way from Pennsylvania as usual. Good evening, Beth.
Good evening.
And from the wilds of Mississippi and done her exams. Good evening, Miss Morgan.
Good evening. I'm very glad to be done.
Yes, yay. And all the way from, now I'm trying to remember, it's Ohio now, isn't it?
Yes, it's Ohio.
Yay. Good evening, Dr. Richard Carrier.
Hello all.
Hi. So, as you may notice, I've got my festive hat on here because, well, we're a couple of weeks out. Seems like a lot sooner because I don't have anything done yet, but you know, but we're coming up on the holiday season. Now, fuck Trump. It's holiday season. I don't give a shit whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, name it. I don't care. There's a lot of holidays this season, and a lot of us are hearing the old "the war on Christmas." Thank you, O'Reilly. At least we don't have to listen to him this year. This is a bonus. The fuckers, he's gone. But everybody bitches and moans about the war on Christmas and put the Christ back in Christmas and it's the reason for the season and all of that stuff. And those of us in the know, though, we kind of realize that that's all a load of bullshit. Christmas really doesn't have much of anything to do with Jesus guy, and Christmas tree, they don't have pine trees or those types of trees in the Middle East. So yeah. I mean, who's ever seen a pine tree in the middle of fucking Jerusalem, right?
Well, actually, decorating trees is condemned in the Bible as pagan.
Yes, it is.
It's in Leviticus 20. Well, it was like I was telling Morgan when you were rebooting. One of my friends online had posted this thing around newish to me, anyways. Meme going, about how the Christmas tree represents Christ and yada yada yada, and I'm like, I'm not gonna touch it because I know because it's local, it's gonna raise a stink, and so I left it alone. So today somebody had the balls to dispute. Basically, it came down to, and why I made this post is this is why I do not direct information on the internet. Basically, the person said, well, it's all the nice information, but I'm just going to believe my nice little fairy tale.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's like, it's like Richard said, I think it's Leviticus 23:10, but don't quote me on that. It's in Leviticus. It says that you not to decorate a tree.
Yeah, it's here.
Great.
I've got it. Jeremiah 10.
Jeremiah 10. Yay.
Jeremiah 10. Hear the word that the Lord speaks to you, O house of Israel. Thus says the Lord, do not learn the way of the nations, or be dismayed at the signs of the heavens, for the nations are dismayed at them. Yeah. For the customs of the peoples are false. A tree from the forest is cut down and worked with by an axe, by the hands of an artisan. People deck it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails so that it cannot move. Their idols are like scarecrows in a cucumber field. They cannot speak. They cannot be carried, for they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor is it in them to do good.
You could kind of argue that might be evidence for the existence of Ents. Nail the tree down so it doesn't move. It's like, shit, you've nailed Treebeard to the ground, you bastards.
Oh my god.
Well, the tree thing, it comes from, I want to say Norse mythology. I could be wrong there, but it's certainly nothing to do with the Middle East.
Well, I do know how it became popular over here and in England is because it didn't really become popular until Victorian times. It's because when Queen Victoria married Prince Albert, he was German. and it was a
Right.
tradition in Germany. And then they had a Christmas tree, and then everyone saw their Christmas tree and was like, "Oh, well, the Queen has a Christmas tree, so now we all need Christmas trees." And then
Holy
it
cow!
caught
Yeah.
on in America. So
Yeah.
that's how we got Christmas trees, because it was initially a German kind of that region tradition. I'm not sure exactly where it started from, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not.
Well, it was
Christian.
bizarre. Even wasn't it like around 1850-ish that Christmas
Would have been.
stuff
Well,
were
she
No,
married
that's 1600.
Albert. She married Albert in like 1840s.
Yeah, Christmas
So-
was banned when the Puritans came.
okay.
Yeah, the Puritans, they banned the festivities
That's right.
associated with Christmas because it was considered a pagan
Yep.
thing, and they didn't
Yeah.
like people getting drunk and having fun and smiling.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
and
true.
It was
actually,
banned. I just couldn't remember the time period.
and did you know that when Cromwell was ruling England, he also banned Christmas?
Of course he did.
'Cause-
He's good
So-
Christians.
Well, and that's
yes.
what always gets my mind is there's Christmas and there's also what's called Yule.
Yes.
They're not the same thing.
Nope.
They've
Nope.
been merged.
Well,
Yeah, a lot of what our Christmas is the merger of Saturnalia and Yule.
yes.
When you put those two together, you pretty much have most of everything that we consider Christmassy.
Yes.
Icelandic Christmas is terrifying. It actually really
They
is.
have Krampus.
Krampus,
No.
isn't that Krampus? Or is that
We don't do Krampus. We do the Yule Cat and the Yule Lads. And or we did when I lived in Iceland, but I wasn't there during Christmas. But this is their Christmas traditions that I know of. Is the Yule Cat will eat you if you are bad, or if you do not get new Christmas clothes, or if you do not wear your Christmas clothes and don't bathe for Christmas, then the Yule Cat will come and eat you. And it is the house cat of a giantess ogre named Grilla. And yeah, and she is also horrifying in description. Like, she has these giant ears and this like beard. It's like a giant
damn.
bearded lady, and like she has all these bags that has little children in them.
Oh.
And yeah, that she kidnaps. And then there's the Yule Lads, which are her sons, and there are 13 of them, but they don't really do much. I don't think they're not very harmful. The most they do is they'll like steal your food, and they'll eat crumbs out from your pans and things like that, and steal your sausages as they're being smoked. So they're annoying. But yeah, so if on the during the 13 days before Christmas, the Yule Lads will come by, and they'll either fill your shoes up with stuff, if you've been good, or they'll fill it up with rotten potatoes if you've been bad.
rotten potatoes?
Yeah, but the Yule Cat is fucking terrifying. And then I
Yeah.
remember I was telling my boyfriend about it last night, and he was like, "What the fuck kind of country did you live in?" He was like, "We just do like Christmas, and everybody, does the Coca-Cola Santa Claus thing." And I'm like, "Yeah," but then he said, "But if we have children, you are to instill those Icelandic traditions into them so they'll behave."
Wow.
Be like, the cat's gonna get you. And I remember some of my friends were messing with me about it, and it was Christmas Eve, so one of them was making cat noises, and I was like, I'm a grown-ass adult. I don't believe in the fucking Yule Cat.
Damn. Oh, I'm so because I'm having heathen Christmas at my place, so I am so gonna get one of those little cat Santa hats and put it on my black cat and be
You're
like,
the Yule Cat.
"You're the Yule Cat for the day."
Oh my god.
Don't give Zorro any ideas.
He's gonna go around eating Icelandic children.
Yeah.
No, he's already doing a good job on me of late.
Uh-oh.
Any ideas, little fucker?
So Richard, I know most of us know that the Christians have stolen the time frame from other traditions, but where does this idea come from that Jesus was born on December 25th? Because we all know that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's hard to trace. There was no tradition as to when he was born for at least 100 or 200 years when Christianity started. But when in the 4th century, I think it was the 4th century, at some point, the Saturnalia festivals, which in Saturnalia it was a number of days. It was from the 17th to the 25th, so that you would celebrate during those days. people would give gifts. You would put wreaths on your door. You would go caroling, sometimes naked. You know, a lot of these traditions that we take for granted about Christmas originated there, and they would end on the 25th. And the 25th was a special day, a part of that. And someone wanted to like basically fold Christianity into that, sort of get more pagans to be Christian and to behave themselves, because the Saturnalia was getting a little out of hand. And so they tried to solemnize it and say, no, Jesus was born on the 25th. And there may have been influences from there are other solar deities that were born on or around the 25th that were widely celebrated before this. So they're trying to like basically co-opt all of these ideas and pile them on top of Jesus. There were some people who tried to calculate the birth of Jesus through a variety of like mystical number stuff in the 3rd century, but there was no like canonical decision as to when he was born. The month is not described in the Gospels, and the 2 Gospels we have that mention his birth are off by 10 years on the year of when he was born. So if they're wrong, they're that wrong on that. I doubt they would have the month right anyway, but they don't. So
some people have said that, you know, the fact that there were shepherds out doing their thing means that it couldn't have been in winter, but if it was in the Middle East, I don't think it would have had that big of an impact.
Yeah, I haven't researched that, so I don't.
Well,
really
it does get cold very cold in the desert. I know in some deserts during
for sure
nighttime. Because I know it over in America.
It snows there.
Yeah, I suppose
it snows there.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a passage in Job talking about the storehouse of ice. I mean, up in the mountains in the Middle East, it snows, and it does snow in area.
Yeah,
I mean, not like what we get here in this country. I don't think they get the accumulation we do, but it does get cold enough, as Morgan said, during the winters. So yeah, you're not going to be wandering around the desert in the wintertime with no clothes on.
At night, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at night it's awfully cold.
So now we have naked caroling and naked shepherding. Awesome. So where does I've also heard people say, well, no, Jesus was born in April. Where does that come from?
I think that was the earlier tradition. I can't remember where they got the idea of it, but I think they just wanted to co-opt certain months to Jesus. It was the same kind of thing. Actually, I haven't even checked that, though. The original April, let's see what Google says. April birthday for Jesus. Let's see what Google tells us, and then I'll tell you if it makes sense or not.
Yeah, because I've heard that multiple times, like from, you know, secular
April
folks.
to June.
Yeah.
April. Yeah, it's usually that.
Maybe because that's a season when people would graze with sheep.
Yeah.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, of course.
1915, titled Jesus the Christ, in which he wrote, "We believe that Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem of Judea, April 6, BC 1. So which matches neither gospel.
Well, that's Mormon Jesus.
I think the date was originally conceived long before that, but no one had really said that's the date.
Yeah. Oh, Ocean in the chat says naked shepherding is something done in Alabama that makes the sheep really nervous.
Oh no!
Oh boy.
Gotta love it. And shout out just to everybody in the chat. Our friend Steve McRae over the Great Debate Community, he's herded a bunch of folks from there over to watch. So thanks for that.
Awesome.
The chat's kind of hopping this evening, and I know our friend Booleanator's over there too. So good evening to everybody over in the chat. I'm looking over here because I have 3 screens and it's over here. But yeah, so first of all, we've got people saying, you know, that Jesus was born on December 25th, which we all know is bullshit, and they're co-opting everything. And so what do we know about Saturnalia? Because I know about it, but I've never really researched sort of what it was and what it was about.
Well, yeah, it was a Roman holiday. And like I said, it was for the 17th and 25th, multiple days, and there's a lot of traditions about it. Like you wouldn't declare war during those days. There were days of constant celebration. You would give gifts to each other. That was a big thing, giving gifts. And in fact, like they were expected to be not like wealthy gifts, but like trivial little gifts, but that would indicate you knew what the person wanted or something like that. So like the value of the gift often, like if it was a low value gift, but it was something they wanted, that was the goal, because that would show that you really had a good friendship with them.
Right.
So it had things like that. You would put wreaths, you would have candles in the window, you would, oh, and then there would be the reversal of society. So you would have like the masters would serve their slaves and things like that. Okay. So like you would have a reversal. There were, like I said, naked caroling was a thing. You go around town singing, and sometimes people would not be well clothed. But
that sounds like a
and it was also a week of sexual license. So there was infamous sexuality going on. That's the Christians didn't like that part a lot, and so there's a lot of different little traditions like that in Saturnalia that we know are going on and continued to be celebrated. It was one of the most popular holidays in the pagan calendar well into the 4th century, and that's why the Christians really wanted to take this over. Because in 395, pagan worship was banned legally; it was outlawed. Actually, so people were essentially forced to be Christian. The Jews had kind of like a carve out for that, although the Christians weren't very friendly with the Jews either.
Yeah.
But pagan temples were supposed to be shut down, or worship was supposed to be ended. Now, the pagans didn't always listen to that, so there were cities that were basically beyond the law, and that pissed people off and would lead to riots and things like that. The Christians didn't like them disobeying the emperor, saying that they're not supposed to worship. But that happened by the end of the 4th century, early 5th century. But before that, Saturnalia had been celebrated since before we have records in ancient Rome. We know some of the developments of the ideas of it were in the 3rd century BC, but it was celebrated even before that.
And I could see that if that's a really popular holiday that everybody loved, and the powers that be are saying, no, you gotta follow this Christian stuff, and they're saying, well, if we put them together, we can still have Saturnalia. We'll just call it whatever the hell they want us to call it, and happy days.
Yes.
So yeah, I could see the appeal to sort of falling in line with that, because you're getting what you want, and you're giving the appearance of conversion and all of that fun stuff.
No, absolutely. And then of course the traditions developed over time. So like we were talking about before, the tree idea that came out of Northern Europe, still a pagan tradition, but got integrated much later, hundreds of years later. And then mistletoe, for example, which has long had kind of a function, but it really sort of picked up in England in I think the 17th or 18th century. Once again, a pagan tradition, has nothing to do with Christianity. So yeah, a lot of these things, the Yule log, like all of this stuff is very definitely non-Christian stuff.
Gob Barrett in the chat makes a good point, says banning worship is a bad idea. It creates the persecution complex like Christians have.
Yes.
It's true. Yeah.
Well, it's funny they talk about the war on Christmas, but the Christians are the ones who literally banned Christmas. Yes. So that's a war on the Puritans that they love, because this is a Christian country and the Puritans founded our nation. They're the ones who banned Christmas, so you should be angry at yourselves.
Exactly. I mean, they're obviously the ones that banned naked caroling.
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody would have tolerated that by the time.
Well, I'm sorry, but naked caroling wouldn't last very long where I live.
That's another problem.
It's currently -6 Celsius and snowing, so.
Yeah.
Little chilly for the naked caroling.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Ocean wants us to go into the Yule log.
Okay, so I do know this about the Yule log. No one actually really knows where the tradition came from, but they do believe it came from German paganism, and which possibly devolved from Norse paganism, and with rituals that were associated with that, such as doing sacrifices and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that's right.
What are we sacrificing, people or animals?
Well, most likely animals, hopefully, but so then it just became, sort of like a burnt offering to the gods, probably, but that would be that part's my speculation, but they do think that it most likely evolved from a German pagan custom. But it's definitely not Christian, because I don't remember in the Bible any part when they were, getting a log down and throwing it on the fire for Jesus. So
yeah, it's not in pagan tradition either. I don't know of any reference to it before the fall of the Roman Empire. So yeah,
so it probably comes from very, very old custom. It's just so old, no one really knows at this point. But that's just speculation from historians' best guesses.
Yeah.
Well, one of the
Oh,
first references to the tradition is from 184. How the hell did I say that? 118480.
Yes, 1184.
yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah,
brain fart.
Brain fart day. Yeah.
yeah. That's the other thing is it goes
Basically-
back to prior to written records too.
Yeah. They're saying that it's a feebled version of an ancient Celtic human.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's a connection there too because we have gingerbread men, right? That's like a
Oh,
Christmas
yeah.
tradition. But
Yeah.
they didn't have gingerbread, but they had cookies that were shaped like people that you would eat during the Saturnalia. So that's another tradition. It just ginger became the predominant ingredient over time later. But the idea of eating little people, which is another kind of like a human sacrifice, like a pseudo-human sacrifice, that originates with Saturnalia, and that became a Christmas tradition.
Well,
It has nothing to do
Okay,
with
this
eating
is all
Jesus.
reminding me of the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang for some reason.
Why?
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. I
Is that the one with the creepy guy that steals the kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the magical car that
I
flies or
remember.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, isn't it a vial in that children's movie for some reason?
Yeah,
Yeah,
didn't
well,
they have
this
a
is
flying
the funny
bed?
thing about it. Yeah, when it first came out, we went to the drive-in. Now you're talking, I was maybe 10 years old, if that. From that day forward of watching, I can't watch the movie even today. It still fucking creeps me out because it's like this is not a children's story. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My parents were very fundamentalist, so go figure. I mean, they thought this movie was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But talking about like the rituals surrounding Saturnalia and the traditions, just for some reason remind me of that movie, and it's like it's really freaky. And people wonder why I don't celebrate Christmas anymore. Like,
Tale of the Child Snatchers.
yeah,
That kind of ties in with being eaten by the Yule Cat.
It
Though.
does. And the Krampus
well, you
stuff.
got being eaten by the
Krampus
Yule
story.
Cat. Richard just added the gingerbread men in there. I was like, holy fuck!
Yikes.
Yep. And if the Yule log was basically a pseudo Wicker Man, right?
Right.
Although there's human sacrifice in the Bible, so at least we've got that. That connects.
That's true. I was also thinking when you're talking about Saturnalia and the candles in the windows, people put candles in the fucking windows all the time at Christmas too. You drive by, there's houses, and every fucking window's got like a fake candle in it.
Oh.
I always wondered why. I'm like, you're actually pagan Romans.
Going back to the Yule log, I had to dig this out because I vaguely remember reading it when I was in Beatty, and he actually makes a reference, possibly could be considered the Yule log in his writings. Now, if you know your church history, Bede goes back to like 2nd or 3rd century AD. So this idea or this notion of a Yule log has been around a long, long time. It's not, something recent.
Yeah.
They have the first written dates are around the 1700s. Bede's little thing is that this very night was observed in the land before by the heathen Saxons. They began, says he, their year on the 8th of the calendars of January, which is now our Christmas party. And then he goes on, but he describes it. Just too many words I can't pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. Tongue-tied today.
No,
but yeah,
okay.
I mean, so yeah, it's been around a long, long time.
Yeah, and
it's been an argument for a long, long time too. It's not, it's not just some recent controversy. The whole notion of the Yuletide, Saturnalia, etc. has been around pretty much since day one.
Yeah. Well, like we said with the and also with the Pilgrims, banning it, they were well aware that these were not Christian traditions.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Which makes sense.
About the Yule log, it's actually bad luck to relight it too if it goes out. It's bad luck to relight it. And then you also can't really put it out. You have to kind of let it go out sort of naturally, as a fire in a
Okay.
secure fireplace will. But I don't recommend that. Don't leave things lit on fire.
Well, some poor bastard would have to sit there and watch it all night.
Servant.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now, so if it happens to go out, you just have to haul it out of the fireplace and burn something else, I guess.
That's a good question.
Probably
We just freeze. Oh God, you're walking out too soon.
Oh,
God has commanded that we must die.
Guess we have to burn the chairs now. Sorry.
Well, about this good luck, bad luck thing, I was researching mistletoe because that wasn't a Roman thing. So I was wondering, where did this come from? And there was something similar in ancient Babylon. It didn't involve kissing, but it had the relationship aspect to it, where women would go to this temple where mistletoe would hang, and then that's where men would go to meet the women to basically talk to them. But kissing wasn't a thing to the Babylonians. But I don't think that's where it originates. When you look at the myths that are when it first starts becoming a thing in England, the tradition was this: that actually you would hang a ball of mistletoe, and it would still have berries on it. And if a couple got caught under it, they would have to kiss, and then you would remove a berry. And then when all the berries had been removed, it would become unlucky to kiss under it. Otherwise, if you was berries there, you would be lucky to kiss under it. So that tradition clearly is probably something out of Celtic or Germanic tradition.
Makes sense. Of course, now we have fake mistletoe, so you have to make sure you get the fake mistletoe with the berries. Don't get any without, or you're fucked. Or not fucked, I guess, might be better. Damn. I was thinking, well, what does it mean if you're unlucky for kissing under the mistletoe?
Sure, yeah.
You're gonna not get any, or what?
Well, back then it was probably you're infertile, right? That'd be the worst thing imaginable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now that's like infertility. Let's kiss under the berryless mistletoe and solve our problems.
Okay. In that case, maybe you do want the berryless. They should be selling both, man. They should be selling both. Those of you who want to reproduce, buy the berries. Those of you who don't buy the berries. Makes sense. It's going to work just as well as the rhythm method, I'm sure.
Oh dear.
Well, also the mistletoe does have Norse roots, because I remember in Norse mythology, Odin's son Balder, which he was walking around the earth, and Loki, I forget how it goes, but Loki somehow tricked mistletoe into agreeing, because basically they got all the rocks and animals and plants agreed that they wouldn't harm him. And Loki somehow tricked the mistletoe plant into it. So he was able to kill Balder by striking him in the heel, kind of like Achilles, with a arrow made from
mistletoe. Oh, and she froze up again.
Oh no.
Damn.
Internet problems.
And then some so he strikes him with the arrow and it kills him, but then some Norse say that he's supposed to come back after Ragnarok, which is kind of similar to the Jesus coming back thing. So again, you see parallels there. But mistletoe is also in Norse mythology.
Interesting. So we were talking about this before the show, Richard. It's like Christianity has absolutely nothing that is unique to Christianity. They just steal from everyone.
Well, when it comes to Christmas, for sure, there's nothing Christian about Christmas. Like nothing. Like not a single thing.
Zero.
I mean, if you're in a church and they've got the crucifix up and stuff, and they're doing their Christ Mass, but that's the shit they made up that most people don't do anymore. Like no, And if you do, you have to go to the church to do it. Like you don't set up. You don't have a priest come to your house, set up a crucifix, and give you a lecture. It's not a Christmas tradition, right? So,
thankfully,
jeez,
right? But
eaten
for the Yule Cat.
Yeah, it doesn't get eaten by the Yule Cat. I'll be like, I'm gonna go hang out with the Yule Cat and the Yule lads, and we're gonna cause trouble over Reykjavik.
I'm just seeing now people like getting in cat onesies and calling themselves the Yule Cat. Yeah.
Well, you know, in Germany, they would hire people to dress up like, so parents would hire teenagers. This is back in the, I think this started around the 1800s, and they would do is they'd hire teenagers to dress up like Krampus and show up and scare their children.
Oh my God, really?
Yes, they would. They would hire them to do that. So then
Wow.
their children would be all freaked out and would behave and be like, "Oh
Yeah.
yes, I love to work on the farm."
Oh my God, that's terrible. I'm not at all surprised, I have to say.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna switch my hat here for something a little.
You got
more.
him.
Yeah, here we go.
Yule cat.
A little more appropriate. My Yule cat ears. There we go.
Well, your reference to Krampus, Morgan, makes me think of the movie by M. Night Shyamalan, Signs, or not Signs. It's the one with the village. You know, they go out and and they have
It's called The Village.
Oh, duh! I'm having a really bad night. My brain is just not working.
But yeah, they had they had those like trolls or whatever that in the forest. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, and basically it was the elders of the village being dicks to try to control and manipulate their subjects.
Yeah, to scare them into not leaving. That was the whole point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like that's what it reminds me, and that's what it, you know, like the argument is you know, one of the arguments, Christianity was created by the Romans to control the masses. Now, while I don't go that far in how I view whether Christ exists or didn't exist or how Christianity came about, to look at it, what they're doing. It's like they're stealing the script from the village. You know, it's like it's got all the elements there.
That does go all the way back to the beginning. It wasn't the Romans, of course. It was this countercultural, anti-temple Jewish sect that came up with the Jesus idea. But they attached it to this idea of creating the perfect society that was sort of a socialistic, communistic society with all these moral rules. But it would be ultimately, once Paul got involved, fewer moral rules than the Torah commanded. And so, but this idea of trying to mold society, like if you just obey these rules and we all share our wealth and stuff and act in a certain way, and then Jesus will save us, and then everything will be great. So Jesus was still used, and they still had the stick of, you know, eternal death or eternal damnation, and the carrot of salvation and all of this, but they tied it to these moral behaviors that would be creating this sort of sub-society underneath the major society that they thought, if it spread, like the whole world would be glorious and great if everybody would just play along and just do this. So there is, you could argue, there is sort of a Machiavellian motive there for people who want to transform society. They're angry with how degenerate society has become, and so they come up with this sort of way, sort of, you know, trick people or convince people into being good. And you've seen people throughout history defend that idea. Even the neoconservatives, like the ones that, you know, the last like 20 years have argued that they're atheists, and they say, but you should pretend to be Christian because you need religion to control the masses. So here we have atheists arguing for the unification of church and state because they understand the concept of using the church to manipulate people. So that goes back. You can go back and see people saying this. I mean, Cicero was saying this before Christianity. So, so, you know, the elites were aware of the use of religion to try and control the masses for thousands of years.
I know in Florida, one of the Reich members, and I'm pulling this one out of my ass, so I don't remember all the details, but he actually started and if I remember correctly, he's tied to Hobby Lobby people, but
in Florida.
You crapped it for a second there. He started a what? I didn't quite catch that.
A utopian
Gotcha.
Wait, is this the guy that did
on his? Go ahead.
Is it the guy that what?
Was this in South America?
No, this is the one in Florida.
Oh God, I didn't know about that one.
Actually, two of them. One is, I can't remember the second one. There was an article that came out a couple years ago on the one in Florida, and I can't remember his name. I'd have to look it up again. And then there was another one, which I believe was JW's, but I'm not sure. But the whole thing was they're using their interpretation of their religion to control people, and it's to the point if you're not and I think it's Roman Catholicism, but I could be wrong. If you're not Roman Catholic, you're not even allowed in the city.
Yes, it's
Really, really
I have an article on it.
bizarre.
Yeah, it's a Florida town called Ave Maria.
I think it's
Ave Maria. Oh,
yeah.
geez.
Yeah, and the town, it says it will have 11,000 homes. And it says Ave Maria is a refuge of sorts for Christian values in a secular age. It is the
Okay.
brainchild of a Domino's Pizza founder, Tom Monaghan,
that's what
Of course.
who built the town as part of his lifelong dream. The staunch Catholic
fuck.
envisioned a community that would draw residents who shared his Catholic values. He says, I put basically everything I had into it, not only my money, but the rest of my life. And yeah, it's Senator.
Oh, we lost her. Damn
Oh
it.
no.
God damn internet.
Yes, but it was the Ave Maria one that I was thinking of. But there's
Okay.
another one too.
Oh,
It's-
businesses are urged not to sell contraceptives or birth control.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So these are Christian utopias, not libertarian ones. I'm thinking of
yeah.
There were
No,
these-
libertarian.
there were these
okay.
libertarian utopias too, in the Pacific and South America and stuff.
Yes.
So
Also-
they better make sure they use the mistletoe with the berries in Ave Maria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they claim that it's open to anybody, and I guess that's so they can't get any businesses that pop up there can't be sued for discrimination. So they're like,
Sure.
oh, well, it's for anybody. But I imagine if I moved into town, they probably would not be
Oh,
too pleased.
they would lose their shit if I moved into town. let me tell ya.
Well, I wonder, because if the whole town is private property, that might be a different thing. Like you
Yeah.
could call it like a monastery or something. It would probably be covered under
Oh, okay.
the civil rights legislation in
Well,
the
they
U.S.
have a university there, if I remember correctly.
It's a Catholic university, but they also say that they
Yeah.
but yeah, they have businesses there as well. And they were
Mhm.
saying that they don't have any strip clubs or adult bookstores or any of that, which you can't ban those from your town. Like there's
Right.
there's a case about that you can say, okay, they can't be built in this under zoning laws, but
Right.
you can't, and you can kind of get around it that way, but you can't just be like, oh, no adult bookstores. But I imagine the Catholics aren't really, gearing up to
Okay,
start up at a
have
strip
they
club.
read
Yeah, I
is-
don't know if you'd make a lot of money there.
Have they
You would
read
make a
is
ton of money.
It'd be like chocolat, right? It'd be open the store and everyone would say, "Don't go there, don't go there." It would punish anyone seen anywhere near your shop. Yeah.
okay, no adult bookstores. Have they read the damn Bible? Seriously?
Seriously.
I
yeah.
mean, okay, Ezekiel 23:20, people.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh, I have a more recent article. Apparently it failed.
Oh.
So,
I'm not surprised. Come on.
Wah,
hang
wah,
on, I'm
wah.
trying to
So
figure
I
out
can
what happened
update
here.
my blog.
Okay.
You can update your blog.
Yeah. Oh, there was
I just found the original article. There were a couple different ones. I think Washington Post did but it was from me. I mean, long ago, but in our world it seems to be.
You're getting really
But-
choppy there, Beth.
Figures.
What did you find, Morgan?
I found an article that said that this woman who was herself a conservative Catholic, but she
Oh no.
Ah. What
Damn.
fuck tonight? Oh my god.
Mississippi.
Mrs. Here she comes.
My problems.
Okay,
Yes.
so yeah, she was effectively this woman who's a conservative Catholic blogger was effectively shunned from the town.
Oh.
And yeah, because she was just asking, she dared to ask questions, and so
Wow.
yeah, it said construction had halted. So there's half-built subdivisions, and mildew grows because it's Florida. Lawsuits and a federal investigation happened. Their athletic program at the Ave Maria University fell to pieces. And it says, among an unholy trinity of F-bombs, firings, and defections.
Yeah, definitely send me that link, Morgan. I'll have to update my blog on that one.
I will. It's
They
very
should
very
rent that out
interesting.
for movies, for movie production. Can you imagine? Like you've got a moldy abandoned town. Like that's like.
That'd be perfect.
Can you imagine? Yeah, you make money off of that just to have them shoot zombie films. You'd be just
M.
like the
Night
producers of
Shyamalan would have a
29.
field day with that.
Isn't that all of Florida?
You could do Yule Cat the movie over there.
Florida?
Yule Cat the movie. Someone let the Yule Cat out of the box. Oh no!
And
Now all our cities are in decay.
It reminds me of that animation in Monty Python of the cat stomping all over people.
Right. Yes.
Oh shit.
Oh man, Terry Gilliam.
Yes, yes. It makes me want to go to Iceland now, though. If you have like a seriously disobedient kid, have a family Christmas trip to Iceland. Problem solved.
Oh, they still tell kids that too. Like, I mean, there's a lot of parents who I imagine in Germany and stuff, you know, they're not so big on the Krampus thing because it's fucking horrifying.
Right.
But no, parents in Iceland very much are like, yeah, Yule Cat's gonna eat you. And it's like, there's usually such a happy, fun-loving people, and it's like, what the fuck? Like,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the thing they tell
What
kids.
I'm
what
familiar
I
with
find interesting about
Yeah,
the,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
What I find kind of interesting, we have like Morgan's been able to bring in the Icelandic, but we have the Germanic and the Pagan and the Yule and all these different festivals surrounding this one time of year. But the only one that's actually survived per se is obviously Christmas. It would be interesting to get all the different variations and track and see how much of an overlap there is between all of them, just to see how ass backwards, you know, the whole notion of Christmas is. But I mean, we have other deities that were born around, quote, the same time of the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's points other mythicist writers have made. I know Acharya was very big on the 20, you know, other deities born on the 25th or around it.
Mhm.
But it'd be interesting to have them all side by side.
Yeah, big chart. New
Unfortunately, we don't know a lot about them because the Christians destroyed a lot of their stuff. Like, we don't have the Gospels of them.
Yeah,
Like these other gods did have like the equivalent of Gospels written about them, but they they aren't preserved. There's Hippolytus, this Christian anti-heresy writer in the early 3rd century, wrote this big thing called Against All Heresies. Big thing. And he's refuting all these Christian heresies, but he says he's going to devote 2 chapters, chapter 2 and 3, to refuting all of the pagan mystery religions, because he says, you know, all these Christian heresies keep stealing stuff from them. And he said, I'm going to expose all the truths about these mystery cults and their gods and what they believe and stuff. And then, lo and behold, those books are missing. Someone tore them out and destroyed them.
Funny that.
So we don't have them.
Because then they'd revolt. They'd say, this religion's stupid. I'm going to have my own religion with Saturnalia and naked caroling.
Oh, that's naked shepherding too. Don't forget.
Oh, and naked shepherding.
Yes.
There was a lot of
Well, we could always
a lot of
do the
naked
Elrond
stuff.
Hubbard
I was going to
had our own
say
religion.
lots of naked stuff in the ancient world.
I
Yes.
wonder when the Lupercalia was. So the Lupercalia was a different one. It was another fertility holiday.
Oh, fun.
February. Okay. Oh, February 15th is the Lupercalia.
Yeah.
Lupercalia is famous because if you were a young woman and you wanted to be fertile, wanted to have a child, get pregnant, or whatever, which was especially important in post-Augustan Rome, because Augustus passed a law that if you're a woman and you have 3 children, you get rights almost equal to a man. Just another whole story there. But but so there was an incentive to have children. But the Lupercalia was that they would have these young lads, probably teenagers, running around naked. And women would, as they're running along, if a woman could hit one of them on the butt with a leather thong as they're running by, that was good luck. And you would get...
Nice.
Yes. So this was Lupercalia, February 15th, ancient Rome.
That sounds like it could be rather fun, actually. Oh, man. And so, and interestingly, now we have Valentine's Day the day before. Oh. So
yeah, I'm sure
this
there's a connection, actually. Yeah.
Oh, there's got to be.
There is. I had to think for a minute.
Yeah. So this
Well,
year's Valentine's Day, give your girlfriend a leather thong and ask her.
Yeah, that's actually, here's an NPR article I just saw, where they're saying, you know, St. Valentine's Day and Lupercalia got combined to expel the pagan rituals, they say, in the 5th century. But that's another example of doing the same thing, co-opting and taming it, right? Taking out all the licentious parts of it and then turning it into something else solemn. It's just couples affirming their love for each other, right? There's no naked lads running through town that you have to hit with a leather thong.
That's so much more interesting, I think. You know, there's so much you could do with that. You know, the paint targets on their cheeks and give out prizes, you know, for accuracy. Lots of stuff you can do with that.
Well, I know when I did my paranormal show, we had did an episode on all the holidays that we have on our calendar, like, you know, Valentine's Day, May Day, and I was surprised, to put it mildly, not really, but pretty much every holiday, for lack of a better word, Valentine's Day, May Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, in some regards, a pagan root that has been co-opted.
Yep.
Every single one. Halloween thing. I mean, and even ones that are not religious, like Valentine's Day. To go back far enough, it is actually a religious holiday, but they all had pagan roots.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. I just find, you know, I find this whole, you know, where Marx said, you know, the opiate of the masses. To me, it rings so true, although that's not actually what he meant, but they use it as a means of control. And I look at what's going on today, especially this past week. Like, holy fuck, they weren't kidding. I mean, and this, you know, they were figuring this out 2,000-3,000 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve says his birthday is on Valentine's Day. Oh, Steve, I am so sending you a leather thong. Do what you will with it, but you're so getting one. Oh shit, that's funny. Oh, what do we see here? Oh, Billionator says if you go back far enough, most holidays go back to the time of a season change or something to do with it. The spring equinox is about fertility and renewal. So, but yeah, it is. It's all, and it tends to be like the big holidays tend to be around a solstice or an equinox,
they all are.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're agriculturally relevant days. Yeah.
And so that, I would think that ties back to trying to appease the gods so that your harvest or your growth or whatever is the best that it can be, because if it don't grow, you starve.
Yeah, I mean, even in Judaism, you know, the Passover and then the Pentecost, right? That's all, you know, first harvest, the first achieving. So that's agricultural as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So go farmers, and that goes back to naked shepherding too. So did I wonder if somebody out there does naked wheat harvesting somewhere? Probably naked hay harvesting, although that would be a little scratchy because I'm a farm girl, been through haying season, and yeah, you don't want to have to do that naked.
Oh shit, yeah, that's like trying to put goddamn fiberglass insulation in a house naked. You don't want to do that either.
Yes. Oh,
no. Or go skiing in shorts and then falling on your ass.
No,
I think everybody does that.
Yeah.
There's people.
My brother learned the hard way.
Yikes. Oh shit. Somebody says ouch. Yep. You got that right.
Well, he wasn't the brightest bulb sometimes. He also took his radiator cap off his car while he had just turned the car off.
Why?
I have no clue, and that was 3 days before he left for the Bahamas.
Ooh,
He wasn't
okay.
the brightest.
Apparently not.
Yikes.
Oh shit. So, what is there anything else about Christmas that's like blatantly stolen? Well, I mean, I'm sure there are, but what anything else that's really kind of fun and interesting?
Well, has
that you
anybody
can think
seen
of?
any of the latest what the Christian worries are about Christmas? I mean I know what they were in past years. I don't know if it's a new thing or if they've given up on the whole war on Christmas thing.
Oh
Ooh, I
no,
should
they're
Google that.
bitching already. Well, David Silverman has his billboards up, so they're
Oh,
bitching
that's
already.
right.
In fact, I'm using one of them as the icon for tonight's show. I've got you in front of his one that says fake news.
Oh, somebody got mad over a nativity scene that somebody put up in a yard, and it featured two Josephs instead of a Joseph and a Mary. And they got really, really upset. And they're like, everyone knows they couldn't
Oh.
conceive of a child. And I'm like, yes, but a virgin is like totes. Like, that's so scientific. Stick to the science, people.
Kirstein is
Look, they don't know that
having
was
a cow over it.
Oh, he has a cow
But
over
yeah,
everything though.
well, yeah, pretty much. The war on Christmas this year seems to be kind of lame.
Well, but that's part of
It's
that
done.
because O'Reilly is not
Bill
on the air
O'Reilly.
anymore.
Right. But it's I think this year it's so overwhelmed by, and I'm not making light of the situation with Roy Moore, with Al Franken, has been in the news more, and I think hopefully, might be wishful thinking on my part, is the Reich is finally the fact that they've lost. There is no war on Christmas. There never has been.
Never was.
And it was all, and being that it came primarily from Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
With him not being in the news
Well, they won't
was.
remember that. Yeah, they won't remember that connection.
But what's
No,
going to
they
happen?
won't remember that at all.
There's lots of people that are going to fill his shoes, and I've already seen where people are like, yeah, now that Trump is president, we can say Merry Christmas again. And, that kind of nonsense, like as if like, oh, it's over and we won because Donald Trump is in office and he's going to make
totally cool. We can offend the Jews now.
Yeah. I've also seen a theory that the reason that the attempted terrorist attack on the New York subway was because it was part of the Islamic war on Christmas.
Islamic war on Christmas.
Islamic war now.
That's a new one.
Islamic LGBTQ war on Christmas. Now, supposedly,
yes.
we're in cahoots with ISIS.
That's the agenda. Okay.
How?
Yeah,
it's a terrible relationship. We need to rethink that.
A horrid relationship.
Talk about
like
your abusive spouse. Damn.
Well, it's like I know when I've been posting some really outlandish stories that I've come across, and quite a few of them are actually from Right Wing Watch. And as much as some people hate them, I happen to love them because they get some of the best shit. I mean, some of the most outlandish. It's like, seriously? And these are people that other people are paying attention to. Well, Alex Jones is, everybody knows how I love Alex Jones. I mean, this is the guy that the President of the United States holds in high regard and gets his, quote, news. And supposedly Jones has a line directly into the White House. But it's like, the other day, he's like spouting this shit about some lesbian conspiracy and speaking in tongues and I don't even know what, because I just sat there and read it like, are you serious? I mean, this is what they're replacing.
Oh, I got some news
the war on Christmas.
Oh,
and it's like,
what do you got, Morgan?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I am on the Fox News page.
Yeah.
Christmas-free campuses, colleges encourage inclusive holiday celebrations. And it says universities across the country, I'm not going to click on the article and give them money, but universities across the country are encouraging or requiring students to make any holiday celebration secular and inclusive. How dare they? And then also it says the DC Transit Authority rejected the Catholic Church's Christmas themed ad, and the ad is find the perfect gift, and it has like the wise men and, you know, the shepherds and all that. It says professor says happy federal holiday instead of Merry Christmas.
Oh,
I'm sure she was, and I'm pretty sure she was being funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure, pretty sure she was being funny and making a joke, but you know, so they've still got, it says, let's see, New Hampshire vet school said Christmas had to be taken off of the.
Oh, damn it.
Well, going back to something Morgan said about the holiday in general, and this is where a lot of what Richard does and other mythicists do, is that Christmas is not the only holiday at this time of year. There's like 21 other holidays. We have Kwanzaa, we have Hanukkah, yada yada yada. I mean, Christmas is not the only.
Well, this is,
and I think it
this is,
should be inclusive.
that's what,
It's like the meme
what I
says,
don't
if you're
understand
Jewish,
is how happy holidays is anywhere, you know, persecuting anyone when it's trying to be inclusive of everybody. Like, I've never
well, I know
understood that shit.
when I worked in retail, and I've told this story before, one year I wished this couple, I might have it for Merry Christmas, and I got ripped up one side and down the other. They're fucking Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
They don't celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
So the next year I went to Happy Holidays, and I got my ass ripped another asshole for using that, because they were Christian and they celebrate Christmas. And I'm like, well, I'm not Christian and I don't celebrate Christmas.
Yep.
It's like you can't
it's
just like the meme says. If you're Jewish, wish me Happy Hanukkah. If you're African American, wish me joyous Kwanzaa. Yada yada yada. The best thing is you're being nice, saying something nice to me. That's what I see it as.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I've, especially the last 10 years or so, that's how I look at. Yes, I celebrate Christmas. I don't have a Christmas tree. I can't afford $40 for a tree that's only going to live 3 weeks. Okay, and right now where I live, I don't have the room. I was with my partner. We did get a Christmas tree. We did go all out on decorating, but I don't do it now because I can't afford it. Yeah. I mean, for me to go out and, because when we broke up, she got everything. Yeah. I'm not going to replace that kind of stuff. It's expensive. I don't have that kind of cash laying around. Yeah. But
well, and if it's just you,
I still enjoy.
The cat's not going to. The cat would destroy it anyway.
I was going to say the cat most likely would rip it down as soon as I got it up. I mean, he rips down my curtain that I have. I have to put it up back up at least 3 times a day. Like, for me, the whole holiday season, and my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving because I love food.
Me too.
You know, and I love cooking. But I don't, now I go elsewhere because I'm not going to cook a whole turkey just for me.
Well, you
I'd
could,
be eating turkey. Yeah, I could, but I'd have a hard time explaining. I mean, you have to do what works for you, but I enjoy to a certain degree. I mean, I'm agoraphobic. I don't like people.
Yeah.
Right.
I enjoy being with my friends, or not. Yep. Like this year, I have no plans.
That's why we're having Heathen Holiday over at my place. I'm having people over that, some people that don't have any family that they either have at all, or they're not welcome, or they don't want to deal with the bullshit or what have you. And shout out to my friend Brian Hinckley. He says, Deb, I think you would prefer the original merriment and debauchery associated with pagan Christmas celebrations, which led Orthodox Puritans to denounce the holiday as evil. Yep. Ooh, yes. I would not be adverse. I mean, I'm not going to go naked caroling, but I would not be adverse to naked carolers showing up at my door. You know, I wouldn't complain.
I found an interesting story here. This is Newsweek.
Yes.
Apparently, there's the new Starbucks holiday tradition of enraging conservative Christians with their special holiday cups. This year being no exception. For the 2017 edition, the cup features non-denominational holiday imagery like snow, wrapped gifts, and people wearing sweaters holding hands. Pretty benign, right? Not so fast. Some conservatives are claiming that those hand holders are women. And you know what that means? Lesbian agenda.
Oh,
The commercial.
I really, really would like to know what this agenda is.
The commercial announcing
For
this
53 years.
compounds that impression. Two female-looking cartoon people lean in to kiss each other just before the camera pans away. Perhaps they are friends. Perhaps they are lovers. Either way, it's offensive.
I love how they look. Do they look for lesbians on every single design? Like every single logo, they're like examining it to look for the devil and lesbians.
Gender type people. They've got to like, this person has to be a gender. They got to like, yeah, they totally have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
That's exhausting.
It is, right?
But going back to something Morgan said about we can say Merry Christmas again now that Trump is in office. Well, it's like there's a video clip Barack Obama constantly wishing people Merry Christmas. So, for people who think that you Merry Christmas,
right?
Go watch it. It's like I think it was 20 times.
Right, yeah.
It blows your mind. And it's like, and it's all over this. I won't call it a silly holiday, but the silly holiday that they've basically co-opted for their own use.
Yeah.
Well, somebody claimed on Twitter that Obama had never said Merry Christmas, so somebody made like a little compilation of all the tweets that he had done over the years saying like Merry Christmas and blah 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 blah, and yeah, it was absolutely insane. And yeah, it's just so.
And that person's never gonna come back and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong."
Better be like fake news.
No.
Yeah.
That's the response. Fake news.
Yeah, well, I got your fake news right here, and it's a picture of nativity scene.
Oh my God, yeah. The funniest thing about the nativity plays today?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
They're based on a spelling mistake. Did you know that?
No, do tell.
So the famous line in your nativity play, it says, "Peace on earth and goodwill toward men." That's what the angels pronounce it.
Yes.
Well, that's a spelling mistake. Someone dropped an S, a sigma in Greek, single letter, accidentally left it out. But when we look at the earlier manuscripts, we can reconstruct it was originally there, the S, sigma. What it originally said, the original saying was peace on earth towards people whom God likes, which is way more sinister and fucked up.
Yeah.
So
holy shit.
Yeah.
So fuck all the rest of you guys.
I mean, the Christians have that mentality anyway. That it's like fuck you. If I determine that God doesn't like you, then fuck you.
That's right,
well, at least we know they come by it honestly, I guess.
Jesus.
Wow.
It's like the one meme going around saying, "Well, I fixed my nativity scene for all you people against immigration. I removed all the from the nativity scene, and all that was left was a donkey being led by a jackass."
Yeah.
Get rid of all the Middle Eastern refugees.
Yeah.
Well,
there
you go, because the whole story is a Middle Eastern couple trying to get sanctuary, and it's like it's kind of works because they get told to fuck off. So
that's right. Yeah.
And we don't want no anchor babies. So take that Jesus with you.
They want manger babies.
Yeah. Manger babies, not anchor babies. Okay, we got it.
Start that hashtag. They'll lose their minds trying to defend themselves against that one.
Yes.
It's literally true, though, the anchor baby thing, because Bethlehem was in Judea and Galilee was a separate country at the time. So, so they went into a foreign country to them because they were Galileans and had a baby. And so that baby, theoretically would get citizenship, I guess. That's not how citizenship worked back then, but
Yeah,
were,
like
they were way more
technically.
xenophobic back then. You had to be like, you had to have a parents from the country you were in. Usually, you couldn't just be born there. So they got rid of the anchor baby problem in the ancient world because
Yeah, of course.
Well, isn't the census
Speaking of
shoehorned in?
anchor baby,
What's that?
Sorry, what's more again?
Oh, I was going to say, wasn't the census kind of shoehorned in because Jesus was from Galilee, but the Savior had to be
Correct.
born in Bethlehem?
Yes.
So they were like,
Yes.
everybody has to go to the land of their great granddaddy to be counted and pay
Which is
their
not how the
taxes.
census.
And it's like, when has a census ever worked like that? The Romans were a very efficient people. Like, that would make no sense.
It's especially funny if you imagine today in the modern age with modern transportation and wealth and all the things. If someone were to suppose that you had to go back to your birth city to register for the census every 10 years, there'd be outrage. It'd be ridiculous. But back then, it was a massive hardship. No, they didn't do that. They didn't have people move.
There would be people demanding, you pay for my flight or pay for my
That's right.
Yeah. All of that. I mean, it depends. Now, I'm lucky at least because my heritage is in Canada back to about 1840. Which is good. But if they went beyond that, I'd be having to haul my ass to Scotland, which I wouldn't complain about necessarily, but only if the government was going to pay for it, then I'd be okay with that. But
Free trip to Scotland, yeah.
Exactly. I'm all good with that.
Yeah, but there won't be any hotel rooms for you.
No, I'll have to find
a farm.
Find a cave in the Highlands somewhere.
There's a tradition where Jesus is born in a cave.
Okay.
It's the Protevangelion of James. And in fact, it's the only birth story known to Justin Martyr. He says Jesus is born in a cave. And the only text that says that is this heretical text or this non-canonical text. But in that story, I think in order to preserve Mary's hymen, the baby Jesus was teleported out of her womb by a magic light.
Now, funny you should say that.
And magic light.
I was gonna say, funny you should say that. I'm starting a new show. I hope to have out before Christmas, where I'm reading the Quran. And
interesting.
And I just the introductory episodes, I went back and read a couple of biographies of Muhammad, and I'm talking a little bit about who was Muhammad and what are the stories involved. And I did not know this until I read the biographies, but when Muhammad's mother was about to first of all, his father supposedly walked around and had this glow about him that everybody, he's destined for great things.
He got a chemical peel.
Yeah. And then he goes and gets married and gets his wife pregnant and instantly loses his glow and drops dead not long afterwards. So I'm sure they're trying to say something there, but whatever. So when his mother starts to go into labor, she claims that a light emanated from her vagina. And now we're talking, she's in Mecca. And if you want to look at a map, you can have a look at the distance, but this light came out of her vagina and lit up the palaces of Syria.
Sounds like a nuclear blast.
I know. I'm like, holy fuck.
Holy shit.
So when you're mentioning this, but what I find also funny is that, she has Muhammad. I'm thinking this should be like Dayglow baby, like no lamp oil required, but no, apparently.
Okay, if there are any physicists listening, they've got to do the math on this.
Yeah.
What is the energy density of a light in Mecca that when activated illuminates the palaces of Syria? And how many people would that probably kill? What would be the blast radius?
Oh, that's a good point. Incoming!
Well, there's another crazy story in one of those other books that they decided not to include in the Bible where, they're telling people that this virgin gave birth to Jesus and everything like that. And this midwife does not believe it. And so she goes to this is, I think, another one of the cave. It might be they go to the cave.
The same one. Yeah.
It might be the same one. I think they go back to the cave, and then she sticks her hand up in Mary to determine if she's a virgin or not, which that's not how that works. But anyways, her hand burns off.
What?
Yeah, her hand burns off, but then the baby Jesus restores her hand.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a really fucking disturbing one there.
So we have Mary of the hand-eating vagina now.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
the same one. It's Salome. Her name was Salome.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
Richard, I have a question going, and it surrounds Christ's birth. You know where they say that Christ is from Nazareth? Now, the stories I've heard, and I haven't really looked into this, is that Nazareth didn't quite exist in Jesus' time.
We don't know for sure.
Have you heard that one?
Yeah, there have been people who've tried to argue that.
I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, the archaeological evidence is indecisive. The thing is like, for example, we have Josephus mentions there were 200 towns there, but he only names like 90. So there are like tons of these small towns. It might be difficult. And there's an actual city sitting on top of Nazareth now. So it's really hard to like properly excavate to see if there was a habitation there. We also don't know if the Nazareth that's there today is the actual Nazareth from antiquity. They might have moved. So there's a lot of difficulty with determining whether there was no Nazareth. Now, I think we have this, there's this inscription that the Jews were circulating, they're building and circulating. We have a copy of it from the 3rd century, but it clearly dates to the end of the Jewish War in 70 AD. It's when the Jewish temple was destroyed, which was 70 AD. All the priests, the high priests, didn't have a place to live anymore because they were living in the temple. And so these various towns took them in. And there's a list of the towns that took in which priests, and Nazareth is on the list. So Nazareth definitely existed by 70 AD and was large enough, or at least respectable enough, that priests would deign to go there. So it wasn't a hovel, right?
Yeah.
It might have been a small town. Like they believed in being humble. So it's possible that it wasn't fancy, but it wasn't, some peasant shithole, basically. So I think when you look at that and all the evidence, and also the reason Jesus was styled a Nazarene is actually from prophecy. Matthew quotes a prophecy that he would be a Nazorian, but the word Nazorian does not mean someone from Nazareth. It means something else. And so I think they looked around for a town that was similar enough and put him there. So I don't think he really even came from Nazareth, but they did pick a real town to do it. But of course, they were writing in the late 1st century when we know the town existed.
Yeah,
so,
but then they also had to make him born in Bethlehem, so it's this whole complicated regional thing.
Yeah.
Where he had to be like hanging out in Galilee and in Jerusalem and in Bethlehem and in all these places in Israel, so they had to like shoehorn that in. But wasn't the Nazarene? Aren't those the people that were? Wasn't Samson one where they couldn't cut their hair or something? That's
a Nazarite. Nazarite. That's another thesis that maybe that was some sort of corruption of Nazarite, because there's Jesus says on the cross like he's not going to drink or something until he meets them in heaven or something like that. And the idea is that maybe he was a Nazarite and that just got confused over time. That's possible. I don't think that's likely, but it's not impossible. It's not something you can rule out, really. But the whole idea of having the 2 towns that he has to be born in, because he also had to be born in Galilee. That was the Messiah. It says in the Bible, the Messiah will come out of Galilee, or the gospel, or the good news of the Messiah will come out of Galilee. So they had to get him into Galilee, and they had to get him into Bethlehem, which is in Judea, and that's a big problem. So they had this whole convoluted storyline to make that happen. Which reminds me of how Matthew, when Mark writes the story of Jesus doing the triumphal procession into Jerusalem, it's all based on Jeremiah and Zechariah, where the king will be riding on a donkey, right? And there's this poem in the Old Testament about riding on a donkey, the foal of a female donkey. It's like it's repetitive because ancient Israelite poetry was like that. But Matthew took it literally and says, "Whoa, hold on! It says both a baby donkey and the donkey's mother, so he has to ride both." So Matthew actually literally says that Jesus rides simultaneously on an adult female donkey and the donkey's foal. So somehow he's managing this as he rides in. It's like some sort of like skateboarder doing some like cool move.
Water skiing on donkey.
And that's the length they went to try and make the dual prophecies fit. And Matthew, of course, is the first one to put Jesus out of Bethlehem. That's not in Mark. Mark never connects Jesus with Bethlehem at all.
And this is why people, I don't get why they're surprised when I say I don't believe in prophecies. They're like, what? I'm like, seriously.
Well, that's one of the conundrums I kind of pick at this, in between other stuff. And it's like, recently criticisms I've read is that what's presented in the Gospels is an amalgamation of two differing prophecies within Jewish writings in the Old Testament.
Yep.
Now, explored, but what, I mean, is that a valid
I think so.
criticism,
Yeah,
or is it
yeah,
right?
I think they were
I
definitely.
mean, I know my person.
Sorry, she's got a bit of a delay.
Yeah. No, they definitely had a lot of variety of prophecies they were trying to force to fit onto Jesus and making stuff up based on that.
Yeah.
The whole crucifixion story, they're reading the Psalms as prophetic and taking ideas out of the Psalms, like the idea of the soldier is casting lots over his clothes. It's right out of Psalm 22. Like, they're just taking this stuff out and just putting it in. Like, no one was really there who said this happened. Even if there was a historical Jesus, this is not historical. And so they're doing this. And sometimes those prophecies contradict each other. It's a bit of a problem. So they got to come up with some sort of solution.
It amazes me because I'm like, people who take this stuff as rote, and most people haven't even looked into it, you know. Like,
oh yeah.
Some preacher tells them that a prophecy from the Old Testament was fulfilled, and they're woo, and
Yeah,
they're
that's true.
yeah, and they're like, what do you mean? How can you not believe that? I'm like, do you have any idea the kind of stuff that they went through to make that shit fit into what was actually happening? Like, seriously, it's ridiculous. The gymnastics involved.
Yeah. Well, my favorite one.
I know when I.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I know when I one of the reasons I left religion was that I couldn't rectify what was presented in the Gospels, what was presented in alleged prophecy, and what evidence at the time that I had read was telling me, because I've always been, I don't fall fully into the mythicist camp. Go as far as he was a Roman plant, the Piso, Flavius Piso theory. But I'm kind of, well, yeah, Christ may have existed, but the Christ that you present in the gospel is not. You know, I'm kind of like, what the gospels say and what may have actually occurred are two different things. And I've never really gone beyond that. I get sidetracked and I go off on a tangent and never get back to it. But it's like, I mean, the mental gymnastics to get some of these prophecies to fit are just ridiculous. I mean, it's just like with Notre Dame. Most people don't realize that what we consider prophecy was his veiled attempt at political criticism.
Yeah.
If he came right out and said what he actually thought about the political climate back in his day, he wouldn't have made it to his next birthday. They would have lopped his head off the next day.
Yeah, the Book of Revelation is the same way. It's the same thing. It's a commentary on the politics of its time. It's not a prophetic, really a prophetic book.
Yeah. So what were you saying your favorite one was, Richard?
Oh, when Ezekiel, they always say Ezekiel predicted that Tyre would be a bare rock and never inhabited. And then you like look online, there's a whole city there. Like, I don't understand your problem. How is this a fulfillment? There's a city there. Not only is the ancient city there, but there's an actual modern populated city there.
Oops. Oh, damn.
And they will offer this as one of their best examples. Oh, this is a really good confirmed prophecy. And like, who told you that? Did you actually check? Did you think the question? Like, did you think like maybe there might be something at Tyre? Like Google it. Like, you know, see like, is there a city there? Is it an ancient city, modern city, both?
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway,
wow. That's ridiculous.
Not Christmas related though, alas.
That's okay. That's okay. I was just gonna share, Morgan. I found a picture of Yule Cat.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yolakater.
Yolakater.
And for those of you listening, it's a kind of cartoony picture of a gigantic cat eating a child.
Yeah, like it's like 5 times bigger than a house.
It's kind of cute though. Still,
it is a very cute cat.
Yes.
The cat's kind of cute. It looks like a Maine Coon.
Yep, I'm looking at the cat going, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's chomping a child in its mouth." Oops.
And it's done very similar to a cat holding a mouse.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. Oh, and then this was the one that came up next in the
Yeah, of course. Like Vampire Kitty.
Yes, yes, indeed. But
Hey,
I
Zorro!
love I love that they're all black. Because I have a black cat, so she's totally gonna be Yule Cat this year.
Yeah.
Done deal. I have to go to the pet store and find a little Santa hat, and we have built-in Yule Cat.
Yeah, I haven't seen a depiction of one that's actually not black. Now that I think of it.
Oh, cool. Well, good then. I'm right on the way.
Yeah. Huh,
Excellent.
I never thought about that before.
Excellent. Well, that was my first thought because I've multiple cat owners, so my first thought, I wonder what color Yule Cat is, and of course it's black.
Mhm.
Black cats and all. Oh man. That's
So
awesome.
what about the so one of the things that I always hear about in the nativity stories is of course the star. And
Yeah.
like, hey, how stars just stay stationary, and you got to use your sun visor to get the star out of your eye because it's so bright. But because they stay still and are above rooftops, like right above. So is there
Clearly
any
a UFO. It's got to be aliens. It's
Yeah.
aliens.
I've
I'm not
heard-
saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
I've legit heard that theory from somewhere. I don't know where, that it was a UFO
Yeah.
or it was an angel.
That was Mary's vagina light.
Oh,
Oh, vagina light. It's weird to see that in Matthew because that's kind of confusing because we know it appears to be a pre-Matthew tradition. When Jesus is resurrected, he becomes this great glorious light in the heavens that all the demons and stuff in the sky see. And like, oh, we're all terrified now because there's this great light in the heavens that's brighter than the sun, which is the description of this archangel that we know Jesus was that the Jewish theologian Philo describes. There's this other archangel, has all the same attributes of Jesus, one of which is that he radiates brighter than the sun, but it radiates brighter than the sun in the realm of the mind. So only like psychics can see it. It's like
how convenient.
like the upside down and in Stranger Things. But there's this other realm where you can see this bright light. But it occurs at his resurrection, not his birth. Like it doesn't make any sense for it to be at his birth. But Matthew sort of transfers it and turns it into this star sign that these magi follow. It's a very strange way to still tell the story. It makes no sense astronomically, of course. There's literally no way to make any sense of it scientifically. And also, like, no one else noticed this. That's another thing to point out. There's tons of astronomers writing treatises in this time, and no one noticed this weird stars like hovering over Israel. What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit. That's yeah.
Well, I think again, I saw just like scrolling around about it, that the Star of Bethlehem has been traditionally linked to the star prophecy and the numbers that says,
Right.
"I see him,
Balaam?
but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. A scepter shall rise out of Israel, and batter the brow of Moab, and destroy all the sons of tumult."
Yeah, that's right.
Batter the brow, huh?
Batter the brow.
Oh shit. Well, we got just a little over half hour left, and I'm actually gonna change things up a little bit because
All
I
right.
wanted to talk about Richard. You have a new app that has just come out.
That's true. In
in
fact,
September.
Yeah. It came out in September. It's really crude right now. It needs a lot of updating and fixing, which I'm working on actually this month. But it's called Crestus. And now I forget what the freaking name, why it's called that. It's we came up with a clever pseudonym or a clever acronym.
And
right?
it's funny. I've got the little slip handout that Lee
There it
gave
is.
me. But
Yes, the ultimate app for exploring the historicity of Jesus,
Yes,
which you can get for Android or iOS, so Apple or Android such. And so it's Christ's historicity, rebuttal, and explanation system, tools, utilities, and services. So we're very clever there. The goal is eventually we're gonna keep updating it until it has pretty much every argument pro and con the historicity of Jesus. It's gonna have glossaries. It's got a chronology map in there that you can click on. And so it's the sort of thing, if you want to really quickly find out, like someone said Jesus existed because of Tacitus or whatever, you can go in there and you can look up Tacitus and see what actually is said there. And right now it's a little disorganized as we just got it launched, and we know, like, I personally know nothing about how to design an app. So I'm slowly learning how to fix it. But it works pretty well already, and there's a lot of information in there. But for people should know that it's going to be much more neatly organized, and all the little typos will be cleaned up and all of that. So I'm hoping to get it done by Christmas.
I can show
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
There's the main menu there. I don't know if you can read that very well, but
Yeah, it's glowing too much. But
yeah.
but yeah, you can navigate.
got-
Oh, and the other cool thing is there's a Bayesian calculator in there for anyone who
Yes.
wants to like use Bayesian reasoning. There's actually a calculator you can enter evidence and have it build it out and see what the results are when you put in certain assumptions, and which you can actually use for probably anything. You don't really need to use it for the Jesus historicity thing, but it's specifically in there for that. Really handy. It's a really neat app. And so I'm going to start promoting it in a couple weeks when I get the new update loaded, but it's still available. You can get it now and you'll get the updates for free. So everybody should check it out. It's at realityrevolutions. Is it .com or .org?
.com.
realityrevolutions.com. Yeah, and you can find the links there for both Android and iOS, and of course it's on the app stores for both applications.
Yeah, and it's got, like, for instance, the menu I've got in front of me that I was looking at. It starts off with why Jesus was mythical, then a people section, a glossary, the chronology, and then the Bayesian calculator. So if I click on why Jesus was mythical, I get Christianity without Jesus, evidence from the epistles, evidence from the Gospels and Acts, gospel plagiarism, evidence outside the Bible, responses to arguments for historicity, and then rebuttals and debates. So, and then there's just like wealth. Like if I click on Christianity without Jesus, we get minimal Jesus myth theory, and then the 48 elements. So they're just, the amount of information here is amazing.
And it's going to grow. Yeah.
It's the kind of thing I've always kind of wanted, because I often, as I've said, I'm a debate junkie, and occasionally I'll get into debating historicity with someone, and the first thing they want is, well, what's your evidence for saying that? And if I don't, if I'm just having a shoot at the hip kind of debate, I don't have that necessarily right there. So now I do have it right there. I can go in and just be like, oh, hang on, let's start with this one, and pull that out.
Yeah, that's the goal of it. Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, if you're in person, even better, because who carries around, like Richard does great work, but I don't carry his books with me everywhere I go. Especially on the historicity of Jesus is a fucking big book.
It's a large book.
Yes, you've got it.
It is rather thick. It is full of information and stuff, so it's handy. But and it does exist in Kindle, but still, it's easier. The app is more. It's easier to get to the things you want to get to in the app, because it's designed to be efficient and brief, but thorough. So,
which is why I like it. Yeah, and my friend Lee over here at CFI Canada actually helped Richard develop it. So
yeah, he's done amazing funding and work on making that happen. So really happy about that.
Oh, and Booleanator put a link to the Google Play Store where it is. So thank you. That's awesome. And in the external chat there. So anybody who's out in the external chat, there's a link there, and we'll put a link out to it in the show description too as well, because
I might have to not have a stupid phone anymore.
I know. I know.
Oh my gosh, you're still like, I was one of the holdouts for a really long time.
I don't want a quote smartphone, because like computer anywhere from 8 to 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's my only form of entertainment. I don't have TV, so if I'm on, I'm most likely watching a video if it's late at night, but when I'm away from my computer, I want to be away from my computer.
Yeah.
I don't want to follow me around in my back pocket. When I'm at work, I can't have my phone anyways.
Yeah.
So what's, I don't even, like, when I go to the store, I don't even take my phone with me. It just drives everybody nuts. But, it's like, I had a smartphone for a little while, and it was like, no.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
I went back to, But even like, no. But that might make me actually want to get one again. So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you think it could ever work as like a desktop application?
Well, there are, you can get operating system emulators. So for your desktop, you can get an Android emulator or an iOS emulator, and it will run any app. Yeah, any apps you can run on your desktop if you get one of those emulators. So that actually expands. You have a lot of options then. Now, I don't have any experience with these things. I don't know how well they work or what the problems are with them or anything like that. But I know they exist. So that is a thing. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look into that then, because I did not know you could.
Yeah, maybe for my netbook if I decide to get one.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be definite.
Because in all honesty, I do far more online debating on my desktop than my phone, because even though it has a physical keyboard, you know, doing this for big long treatises is and I'm a little bit verbose when it comes to the debating. That's why I quit debating on Twitter, because I ended up I used to have those message chains of like, you know, one of 7 and
yeah. I know exactly what that's like.
It's probably better now that they've expanded 100 characters, but
not a lot.
But... Some people, I'm like, can you take them away?
I actually like the 240 characters because I could never get what I wanted to say into 140 characters, and I'd be sitting there for an hour trying to shorten it to make sense.
Yeah.
I'm also glad that they don't force you to include who you're replying to in the 140 characters, because when you were trying to debate, say, a group of people, that got to be a pain in the ass, because you would have like 3 or 4 people you wanted to retweet to, but then it left that you could only say like 5 words to as your rebuttal.
Right. Yeah.
This isn't working, people. So that I'm happy with. But now I haven't debated on Twitter in like a couple of years, just because Facebook is so much easier.
Yeah, it is.
Sure. Oh, speaking of Facebook, you'll like this, Richard. You may have noticed that you saw the goofball replies to my post about the show.
Gosh, I did not read them. I was like astonished though. That really went on.
There was only two people, but the one guy was being a dork, and I kind of toyed with him a little bit. But
yeah, I saw that.
This guy is Mike Nguyen. And he posted after we started the show, and he said, "Hey, Richard." Well, he says, "I have 2 intellectual questions." I kind of call that into question, but first one, he says, "First, how would you feel if this Christmas I called you Richard Mythicism?"
Well, I wouldn't feel anything because I wouldn't notice, because I'm not psychic or omniscient. So
who knows? We don't know you. Just like, seriously. The other question I'll read it. It doesn't make any sense. But second, when I read your quote intellectual book, what source are you referring to when you says element 1, element 2, etc.? What is the source when you says element? Is there a book I could find?
Oh my God. That's what the hell? Okay, so let me explain to people who might not know where that has gone wrong.
Oh, I'm looking at the thread now.
So in my book on the historicity of Jesus, I have 2 chapters which just enumerate important background knowledge that we have to understand in order to interpret the origins of Christianity. And I number these pieces of background knowledge into 48 elements. And of course, so each one I have a number as element 1, and then I explain what the thing is, and then I have footnotes that have all the sources. So if the question is, what are the sources for the content of the elements?
There's footnotes for that.
They're actually in the book. It's called footnotes. They're all there. But otherwise, if he's asking where I got the word element from, there's this thing in the world called the English language.
Yep.
And it has words. And sometimes these words have obvious meanings that are very applicable to certain things. And element was a applicable term because in this case, it's very similar to ancient philosophy, where they would list the elements of their ideas and then build a conclusion out of those elements. Get the connection there. Build out of the elements. Yes. Anyway, that's where the idea comes from. It's just creative, artistic license, but the meaning is clear, and the evidence is in the book. So
I'm pretty sure
Mike. I think Mike is just a big old dumbass.
What else did he say? He said
There was more evidence of
sold
that.
to
Yeah.
the devil.
Yeah, the first comment he made, like, because all I did was I posted the show and like the blurb for the show, and he goes, "Ha ha! Believe in fake scholarship, sell one's soul to the devil."
You go to
And then-
hell if you believe in fake
But then what made
scholarship.
me laugh? But what made me laugh is someone else named Richard Carrier
Yes.
responded and said, "You don't want to do that."
That other Richard Carrier sometimes haunts my wall. He's a believing Christian who clearly is very offended that one of the world's notable atheists has his same name. So this comes up.
Awesome.
This comes up from time to time. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm like, where the hell did that guy come from?
There are a lot of Richard Carriers.
Okay, well, I only know one.
Definitely getting popcorn.
I'm the only-
I like some of the online quote debates that you get drawn into. I've been following your most recent one concerning a book. I can't remember the dude's name now, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, like, I think what gets to me is when they accuse you of not having the credentials, and I'm like,
it's a fucking PhD. What more do you want?
I know.
Oh.
Well, it's just like this guy that was ripping this woman online, and it turns out she was like an astrophysicist and has like 2 PhDs, and he's like, oh, it's like, what more do you want? And I'm not a credential type person anyways. Is your evidence solid? Does it lead to a valid conclusion?
Yeah.
I mean, quite a few people that are not quote credentialed but are smart as hell, and I wouldn't want to meet them in a back room and debate them because I'd get my ass handed to me.
Like David doesn't have a PhD, but he's smart as hell and he does great work.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I just find it funny, and I've noticed it more with Richard. He gets it a lot, and I'm thinking,
yeah, it's the same thing they did to Thomas Thompson in the 70s when he did a dissertation arguing that Moses didn't exist, and everybody went after him. It must be fake peer review, must be fake scholarship, must be a fake PhD. We're gonna ruin your life. We're gonna get you disinvited from every conference. We're gonna ruin your career. You can't possibly be legitimate. And he suffered from that abuse throughout the system of academia for many, many years. And then now it's the mainstream view. Like everybody's like, well, yeah, you know that thing he said? Yeah, he's probably right.
Yeah.
It took 20 years.
He exists. And I find funny about that one is the woo-woo meisters have latched onto that view regardless of whether, white mainstream. And it's like, and they're passing it off as the God's honest truth, and it's like, but their scholarship behind it, their evidence behind it is junk.
Right.
Yeah.
But then
that happens.
Somebody, and it's like, 20 years ago you were pissing out your window because this was garbage, but you're promoting the exact same crap.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Like, I still get times like if I'm having a discussion about historicity and I get some Christian who's like, how stupid is that to say there couldn't have been a historical Jesus and blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, there are people who have some pretty damn good evidence in support of that, and that's fringe history. Fuck's sake, people.
I would always use that. I would like pivot them on that and say like, oh, so you think we should follow the mainstream, like the mainstream consensus, right? Like what the mainstream is, not fundamentalists, but the mainstream consensus says. You get them to agree on that principle. And they go, okay, now let's trash the fuck out of your Jesus. Let's look at the mainstream consensus and what they think about the historical Jesus. No, I think if you're debating with a Christian, you should not even go with the non-historicity thing. You should just talk about the Jesus of the Gospels is false, and mainstream scholarship agrees. This is universal, a consensus of mainstream scholars. Obviously the fundamentalists don't want this to be the case, but yeah, you can really argue that pretty effectively. And actually, my book on the historicity of Jesus is really helpful for that. You never have to actually argue that Jesus didn't exist. You can just say, well, the gospel Jesus clearly didn't exist.
No.
If there was a Jesus, he was something fundamentally more mundane than that. And that'll get their hide. And then, of course, that'll completely annihilate their whole, like, oh, that's fringe. It's like, actually, it's not fringe. This what we're talking about is not fringe. This is mainstream now.
I loved, it was a lecture you gave in Toronto. It was the first time we met, actually. And you had talked about, it was a prophecy back in the Old Testament that talked about, you know, a guy named Jesus Christ who was going to be murdered and all that. And then you said, you know, people read that and went, oh shit, I could be that guy. And there was like 6 or 8 guys who were trying to be Jesus Christ all at the same time. And I was like, oh my God.
People who are interested in that. No, it's not the Toronto talk, but I gave my favorite version of that is my Wichita talk. Now, it happened after Harold Camping predicted the end of the world. So he said Rapture Day is going to happen on this day. So Wichita threw a conference on that day and had me come and talk. And my talk was, you're all going to die. How the Jews kept failing to predict the apocalypse and accidentally created Christianity. And that's literally true. It was Christianity is a product of the Jewish failure to keep trying to fix this prophecy that failed. It's just one more attempt to fix it, and here we go. We got Christianity, and I go through that. And one of the things I point out in that is that Josephus describes like several, like about 5 or 6 people who are portrayed. They're not named Jesus. He doesn't say they're named Jesus, but they portray themselves. They do things that represent them as the new Joshua, which Joshua, by the way, and Jesus are the same name. They're identical in Greek and Hebrew and stuff. So they're portraying themselves as Jesus, like they're going to topple the walls of a city, or they're going to part the seas of the Jordan, or, you know, part the waters of the Jordan. So they're doing things very Joshua-like. They're representing themselves as Joshua and as the Messiah. And of course, Messiah translated into Greek means Christ, as the word is Christ. So there were actually these 5 or 6 guys Josephus talks about who are representing themselves as Jesus Christs. And it looks very clear that they're trying to get themselves killed on purpose, because Daniel 9 says that the Christ will be killed and then the end of the world will come. And the Christ will be killed even though he's innocent, it says, you know, so this will trigger the apocalypse. And part of the logic of Daniel 9 is trying to fix Jeremiah, because Jeremiah predicted the end of the world and it failed. It didn't come to pass. And so they're refixing the numbers. And the numbers just happen, if you look at the simplest math of it, it happens to point to a period around the 30s AD. So it's first century AD. So they're all looking at the math and they're going, oh, this is the time. All we need is, and the reason God kept saying, and I talk about this on the historicity of Jesus, but the reason God kept saying, I'm going to postpone the apocalypse because you people are just a bunch of sinners, and until you stop sinning, I'm not going to help you guys. And this passage in Daniel 9 is all about how, you know, like this last Christ will die, this last Messiah will die, and there will be an atonement, you know, final atonement for all sins, and that will actually open the way for God, because now all its sins will be atoned for, so he can come now, right? So you can't use the excuses, you're all sinners. No, we cast a magic spell, we got rid of all the sin stuff, God, so it's time to come. And that's what I think these like Josephan Christs, as I call them, were trying to do. They're trying to get themselves killed to try and bring on the apocalypse. And if Jesus existed as a historical figure, it's plausible that he was just one of these people doing the exact same thing. And I think that's the next most likely hypothesis, if he did exist. So, so people who want to see the hilarious talks, I go into how God has predicted how he's going to kill us all in multiple different ways for a long time. That's in the Rapture Day talk at Wichita. It's you're all going to die. So if you just Richard Carrier, you're all going to die. You'll probably find it on YouTube.
Yeah, that is I think I have watched that one as well. Maybe I'm remembering the wrong one.
I reuse the material, so who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I've watched you in several different venues, so I could be screwed up. Who knows? But no, I just thought it was so fascinating, and I'm far more inclined, like as you say, to think that maybe there was, you know, a bunch of dudes who were going around saying, "Hey, I'm Jesus Christ."
Entirely plausible.
Yeah. And so there, you know, I'd be happy to say, well, no, there was no one Jesus. There was like a bunch of them, and they were all trying to get themselves killed. Well, who does that? Like, oh, I want to be a martyr. Well, okay, I guess a few people do that, but it doesn't make sense, you know. It's like, oh,
I post about them every day.
I've read this obscure prophecy that says, you know, a guy named Jesus or a guy with the title of Jesus Christ is going to get murdered and he's innocent. So I want to be that guy. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
I
Well,
just-
people who have a messiah complex, by
Yes.
definition. You look at Waco, or you look at People's
Yeah,
Temple.
true.
You have these people who do this. Like, they put themselves in a situation where they kill themselves or get themselves killed, and they think that this is going to justify them, and God's going to come and save them or whatever. Reward
Or they
them for
get-
their faithfulness.
They get the big mansion in heaven. That's
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
I used to belong to a Calvinist sect, and they used to teach things like the more people that you bring to Jesus, the bigger ass crown you're gonna get to wear in heaven and shit like
Right.
that.
Yeah, the biggest
Yeah.
mansion.
Yep.
I always thought it was kind of funny though that in order to get any type of reward, you had to be fucking dead.
Yep.
Yeah.
You get to rule. You get
I'd
to
like
rule
my
the entire
reward
planet.
now.
Yeah,
you
let's
get
get me
to
through
rule
this
the whole
life.
planet, but you gotta be
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give it to me. I mean, people say, well, what's your meaning for life? And they're two different meanings to those terms, but it's like, stay alive?
Mhm.
Oh, but you're
Just-
gonna...
Yeah.
It's like, no, if I'm gonna get rewarded, I'd like my reward now.
When I can use
After
it.
I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
when
then
I can use it.
We can confirm that it actually exists and it's not just
Yes.
fraud.
Or actually
You're just gonna run off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
You took it.
We're not making good on that contract. Oh, dupe. Yeah.
well, that's what I found. It's like when you point that out that you're being rewarded, but not until you're dead. It's like, what's the purpose of it? I mean, I don't want it
And
then. I want it kind of like
And then
now.
they get mad when I say they belong to a death cult. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you do. Everything you get, nothing happens until you croak. What do you call that?
Yep. You worship the murder of a man and expect your death for everything. Yes.
Yes.
And not just
Yeah.
your, but everyone's death, because you're praying for the apocalypse. You're literally praying for Gozer the Gozerian to come and destroy the world.
Yes.
You are a Gozer worshiper, basically.
There we go. I like that. So you're next time I get somebody who's like, "Oh, you're all going to hell," I'm like, "Oh, so you worship Gozer?"
Yes.
Huh? What?
Yeah, you know the apocalypse, right? Yeah. Gozer.
That's awesome. See, this is why when people tell me history is boring, I'm like, fuck you, because look how much fun you can have fucking with people if you know history.
And
Like-
popular films.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Leave me out on that one.
It's modern day mythology. It's our,
It is.
our,
It
our myths and
absolutely
legends
is.
that we teach from, examples from.
Yep, absolutely. Gozer.
As long as you don't
have
believe
you
that
checked-
those
or have you
modern
checked your-
mythologies aren't true.
We accept
Yes.
that. Yeah. And yet we can still use them as teaching examples, right? You know.
Ooh.
Well,
No.
that
ahead.
in one of the Nephilim proponents, one of their examples or analogies they use is the jolly green giant.
Oh lordy.
Okay.
Ah.
Okay, I can kind of see, we have Jack and the Beanstalk, these, giants, in our, quote, modern day mythology and folklore, and I'm like, yeah, okay. But then they went a step further and said that the Jolly Green Giant is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this old book, it's really old, therefore it must be true. Says
I have a picture of the Jolly Green Giant that I don't know that they would think was very nice, but it goes along with naked caroling.
that. Oh no.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, and he's showing his appreciation for his caroling work, I think.
Okay.
That's why we know he's a giant.
And jolly.
Exactly. Very jolly. Very, very jolly. I don't even know where I collected that. That's a picture I've had for probably a decade. I found on some website somewhere.
Well, what's the rule? Rule 34? Is it rule 34?
About porn and the internet?
Yeah, if there's something you
Yeah.
can think of,
There's porn for that.
Yeah, it exists.
And the other rule, of course,
If
is
something exists, there is porn of it. That's the rule.
yes.
Like dragons having sex with cars. So definitely Google that.
Oh, Lordy.
Watching Alex.
And I don't know at all that there's a website out there called Bad Dragon. Don't know about that at all. I ain't gonna say why I don't know that either.
Speaking of dragons, you know, Ken Ham's Creation Museum in Kentucky
Yes.
has an entire wing dedicated to dragons are real.
Oh,
Including they have a clipping of a 19th century newspaper article in which these cowboys fight a dragon, a fire-breathing dragon.
What? I want that movie.
Right? I know, right? Why hasn't this been a thing? This has got to be a thing. So there's this article you can read there on the wall. And it says, you know, the caption, like, clearly dinosaurs still existed in the 19th century. They've only recently gone extinct.
Do they not know photography existed in the 19th century?
It would have been difficult to get a moving dragon in photographs back then, but it was very common to have these ridiculous cowboy stories coming out of the Old West and newspapers, right?
There be dragons. Yippee-ki-yay. How to lasso a dragon.
Although, interestingly, it's probably better attested than everything about Jesus, because this is an article that would have been written within mere years of the event.
Yes.
And you would say, like, the author of the article spoke to the eyewitnesses, right? Because, you know, where else would he get the story? Obviously, he spoke to eyewitnesses. So he's got eyewitness testimony right there. Freaking breathing dragon in 19th century. Done and dusted. We've got it. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well, that would make sense with that mom who went to the history museum, natural history museum, and was like, see that's a dragon head in there. It's like,
oh no, I didn't hear about this.
Well, she put out 2 or 3 videos, but one where she was in the natural history
Megan
museum.
Fox, not the actress.
Yes, her name
Okay.
is actually Megan
She was
Fox.
on, Friendly
Just Google
Atheist. Did some
Megan
pieces on
Fox.
her.
Yep.
Yeah, Google
Probably
Megan Fox, Friendly Atheist. They have some profiles they've done on her work.
She's going around the Natural History Museum pointing at the displays and going, see, they lied about that one. That's not true because evolution is wrong.
It's like, Mom, take your pills. Jeez.
There was one video where she was asking for evidence of something. I can't remember how the video goes. And she walks by this whole section in the museum of, quote, said evidence that she wanted, and focuses in on some other. See, there's no evidence for this. I mean, you can see it.
It's like a wall of the proof she was asking for.
Yeah. But there's a couple good rebuttal. I think Logic did one, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
But the only warning I would give is listening to the bitch.
Yeah.
Is like worse than listening to Kent Hovind or Ken Ham.
Okay, yeah.
Or Ray Comfort or Kirk Cameron.
Yeah. Any of those idiots.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And she's homeschooling.
Yeah.
And she's homeschooling her kids.
Oh no. The exact opposite of that is the Creation Museum, where it's just a bunch of plaques. There's no evidence. It's just a bunch of plaques that make assertions. Yep. They're just fancy plaques. You just walk through the whole thing.
Yep.
Or they'll have like an article from the 19th century.
Yeah.
Not really evidence.
Well, that was like, I know when Ham was originally proposing the idea before it was even built, one of the arguments that some people use was his use of the word museum.
Right.
Yes.
There's no evidence.
There's nothing.
And there was a big hubbub about that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And they have some things like he has his childhood dinosaur stamp collection. It's very important. And there's a whole wall full of interesting rocks. Like it has a great geological component to the museum, but these rocks prove nothing. Rocks. They're only there to show, like, look how beautiful an artist God is. Look at all these rocks he made. But there's no like evidence that he made them. Like they're just there. Look at these pretty rocks. Like, yeah, that's great. This is a great rock collection. It doesn't prove anything. Sorry.
It proves that somebody really enjoyed collecting rocks.
Yeah,
it is a great rock collection. I'll tell you that. I'll give you that. Like, if you go to the Creation Museum and you'll see nothing but garbage and bullshit, there's some true interesting things there, like the rocks. They just don't evince anything. So,
You know,
and the stamp collection is impressive. I'll give him that. That is an impressive collection of dinosaur stamps.
too bad he didn't learn anything from it. Is that sad? He probably would have learned, done better if he'd have gone with what the stamp said at least.
Right. Oh, he really does.
Or
love
done facts
dinosaurs.
about the stamps. Like, this one was made in 1964.
Yeah, I'll bet. He loves dinosaurs so much. That's why he has all these animatronic and other dinosaurs in the museum.
Yeah.
And then he built the Ark, that's 40 minutes away, and which I also went to. And he loves dioramas. There's tons of dioramas in both museums. And there's a diorama in there where there's this gladiatorial, like this Babylonian gladiatorial combat where Moses and his family are fighting giants and dinosaurs.
Every word of that sentence upsets me.
It is amazing. It is a beautiful diorama. Like as a model builder, it's elegant. It's excellent. It's not only, it's biblical bullshit, not just historical bullshit. There's no Bible story in which Moses or anyone has gladiatorial combats with fucking dinosaurs in arenas and giants. Like, it's just...
See,
well,
I don't know.
just like hoping.
I was gonna say I would love to go and visit them, but I don't want to give them my money.
Yeah.
That and they're expensive.
I wish I'd have been there when Eric Hovind was handing out glasses to atheists. Then I would have gone.
Right.
He was handing out what?
When the group went down to protest the opening of the Ark Encounter, it was like they had their big thing the day before, and then this was like the actual day the general public could go in. Right. And there was a whole group. Aaron Ra was there, and I think David Silverman and a bunch of people. And Eric Hovind was there, and he bought a bunch of admissions and was handing them out to the atheists, so that
thinking it would convert us.
Yeah,
probably yes.
Yeah.
It's a miracle, and then I'd be like, "Oh, I need money to pay off my tuition."
Yeah.
It's a miracle. I'm a believer now. Crazy.
I gotta ask. I saw Tracy Moody's video when she went into the Ark, and what struck me was the area where they have all the little cages and just sound effect. Is that not creepy as shit in person?
No, it's fun. You go in. You go in there. First of all, this attraction is failing horribly. Like, no one goes to this thing. You have like some Mennonites and some bust-in church groups, but it's the lines are just not there. There's nobody there. It's a failure in that respect, but it's beautifully done. Like, in terms of like the structure and everything, it's elegantly done. But as soon as you go in, you walk in and it's immediately like huge speakers are playing storm sounds, right? Because it's you're supposed to feel like you're on the Ark and the storm is killing everyone. Everyone's dying, and and then you go into the
people screaming and banging on the side of the.
They didn't do that. That would have been super creepy. They didn't do the screaming people.
Best haunted house ever.
But they do have the cages of the animals where you have animal noises emanating from them, because they have. He even does the math, like how many animals they needed to because all of the animals today are adapted. They're micro-evolved from the kinds, these core kinds that don't macro-evolve. So
now he believes in evolution. Okay.
Right. Micro-evolution. Micro-evolution, but not macro-evolution. And so so he only needs like 3,000 animals to explain all life on Earth.
Yep.
And they work out the math, and they have models of these animals, and they have the pig kind. It even says on the cage, pig kind. So it's like not a pig, but it's scientific. It's a proto pig. Yeah, they're totally making. It's totally freaking made up. Now, if you want the funniest thing that they made up, is clearly someone was making fun of them because in the design in the Bible, there's only one tiny hole in the whole ship, and he says that you would suffocate. There's no ventilation. You would die. And so clearly he hired someone to figure this out. This is, the Bible doesn't say everything about the ship. So we're going to say that there's this big hole that goes all the way through the ship, and then the water goes up and down, and the water acts as a pump, as you're going through the sea, and it pumps air in and out of the ship. And like, this is very clever, not in the Bible, but whatever.
Yeah, and there are lots of instructions about how to build the Ark. Like, there was like 3 chapters of fucking instructions.
And somehow they forgot this amazing ocean
water pump.
This title tidal air circulator. But it gets worse because then you go a few scenes down and you read another plaque that where someone clearly complained about where would all the poo go.
Yeah.
Like, you got all the tons and tons of feces. What do you do with it? And they show them shoving it down this air circulator.
Oh,
Okay.
And I want you to do the math on that, because they have like tons and tons of shit is going down this air circulator. That's
Why would you make
you're
that
shoving it
straight
in your
hole?
air ventilation
Okay.
system.
I'm a farm girl. I can tell you what big heaping piles of shit smells like in a confined space like a barn. No.
And clearly those two teams that were inventing this solution to this problem that's not in the Bible were not talking to each other, because
Or ever set foot in a fucking barn.
right. There have actually been farmers who've died from methane releases from large manure piles. Yeah.
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah, and combined with putting that inside your only ventilation source, like why would that
Distributing
smell would be horrible.
fumes.
Like, oh, I know, let's just shovel it into an air supply where we get our fresh air from. Like,
It's
that'll
hilarious as fuck, I have to say.
Oh,
Yes. Nevertheless, that's true.
makes me
Wow.
very sad.
And
Oh,
at that, we're kind of actually at the end of the evening, folks.
Right on. Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us. That was a lot of fun. Really
Great.
appreciate it.
Love being on.
Excellent. And take some time to tell us where we can find your stuff, your blog, your books, all of that stuff, please.
I mean, everything's warehoused at richardcarrier.info. So info. So richardcarrier.info. You can find my Twitter feed there, and follow me on Twitter. You can find my Facebook feed. Follow me on Facebook. You can find my classes. So I teach online classes every month on both philosophy and biblical and ancient history. So if you want, like, for lay people, so if you want to learn more about that, I've got my courses announced there. And I blog regularly, and I have all my books you can access from there. I've just came out with my 8th book. Literally is out now, which is The Scientist in the Early Roman Empire.
Yes.
Yeah, everything you can find is at richardcarrier.info.
Excellent. And great. Now I have to put another book in my pile of things I need to read. Thanks a lot.
Well, I gotta do another Canada tour. I gotta do that at some point.
You do. And I know
I love Canada. I love driving through it.
You only got as far as us this year. I just went to Newfoundland and back. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, this is something I want to do. Eastern Canada. I haven't done. I've been Western Canada. Everything from Ottawa west, I've done multiple times. I've got to do Eastern Canada. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Start in Ontario, though. I'm just saying.
Of course I will. You're right by me. Like, literally, I'm like right below you practically.
Exactly. So come on up, and then on your way over, I can recommend some places. And
for sure.
Yeah. We went to the Viking settlement in Newfoundland it's called Lanso Meadows, and it's amazing.
Awesome.
So lots of good stuff out there. St. John's is really pretty too. That's where the university is out there. But it's kind of scary though. Like it's a big rock. Like we were there for a week, and we were averaging about 600 kilometers a day. And still not get. So it's a big rock. And so in contrast, the city that I live in Waterloo/Kitchener, that you've been to, we're about 250,000. The entire island and province of Newfoundland and Labrador is 500,000.
Okay.
So yeah, there's not that many Newfies out there. But anyway, but yeah, definitely come back, and we'll have to hear all about the new book too, because history is your friend, people. There's nothing boring about history ever. It is some exciting shit.
There's some great stories. Yeah, you should totally have me on to talk about ancient science. I would love that anytime.
We could do that, absolutely, for sure. We'll do that then later, soon-ish. But anyway, Beth, where can we find you?
Well, before I go into that spiel, I need to ask a favor.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Of our listeners. As most of you know, I work in a very small town pizzeria. Well, one of our co-workers recently had a premature baby. kind of lousy timing. So what we've decided to do, and this is kind of a surprise for her, she has no clue we're doing this, is trying to raise some funds so we can celebrate a Christmas for her. She has a 2-year-old son, and she now has a newborn. So I'm setting up a small GoFundMe. It's going to end on the 17th because, we still have to Christmas shop. If you could, I would love it greatly from the bottom of my heart if you could donate $1 or $2. We're not looking for a lot of money. We're shooting for maybe at most $200. So I'll put the link in the group page, and I'll have it out on my show page. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to ping me. I can't say too much publicly because she is on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
Although I did delete her. But her family is on my page as well, so I don't want it to get back to her. But if you guys could, throw $1 or $2 or $3 our way, anything we can get will be greatly appreciated. We are using other avenues. We're not just relying on GoFundMe, but we'd like to throw her a nice little shindig for her kids. The daddy basically deserted her, and she's 21 years old. She's really young.
Yeah.
A couple bad decisions shouldn't affect her entire life. So hopefully we can get her going on the right foot for 2018. So, but I'll post that in link.
Awesome.
Easiest way to find me, that'll be on Twitter, and it'll be on all my other pages. Easiest way to find me is Twitter, Dune998. That connects to Facebook, that connects to my YouTube, that connects to my blog, which is Havoc and Chaos. And I do actually have some new material coming out. I decided to delve into the woo of B17. That's it.
Oh, B17. Ugh.
Yes. Laetril, for those of you that are unaware. So it's going slow because, it's interesting. I try to avoid going down rabbit holes.
Good luck.
But there's some rabbit holes, and some of the conspiracies surrounding B17. I might even do one just on this one conspiracy, because of course they have to be. So, but 998 Twitter, on Facebook and Yahoo is just Bethy Hambridge. Hit me up.
Awesome. And Morgan, where do we find you?
All right. Well, you can catch me on the Bi Skeptical podcast with Trav Mamone. That airs about every 2 weeks on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher. And we are about to record our Festivus episode. So if you would like to air your grievances and have them read on the air for this year, I'm sure there's plenty. We'll try to make it a 24-hour podcast-a-thon, though, though we probably could. So you can put those on either my personal Facebook page, but by any means /Bi Skeptical fan page, or you can message me on Facebook or Twitter for that. So yeah, you can catch us on that. And then you can also follow me on Twitter at Mostring. That's MOSTRING. And then you can friend me on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer.
Awesome. And you can also find me on Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, which airs at Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. on YouTube. It's run by Shujin Tribble and our motley cast of panelists from everywhere from Paris, France to, Ontario. And we talk about all things secular. So Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. And Richard, we do it at that time to compete with Coast to Coast Radio because
right.
Exactly. Makes it a little tricky to get guests at times, though. But we do what we can.
What do you talk about on that show?
Oh gosh, everything. Actually, the other night, Sunday morning, we talked about the social science of furry fandom.
Okay.
And we had an actual psychologist who's a furry who does research into furry fandom. So
Sweet.
That was kind of cool. Yeah, learned quite a few things. So yeah, we talk about that. We have every 10th episode, because we try to keep it 1 or 2 F-bombs an episode, but every 10th every 10th episode, we just have a free for all, and you can swear all you want. We call it the Power of 10. And so occasionally they've played Cards Against Humanity on the show, although both times they've done it, they did it when I was in Milwaukee. I was like, fuck you guys.
Oh.
I know. They do it when I'm not available, which sucks, but one of these days I'll get to play. But yeah,
Nice.
it's all kinds of stuff. So
Cool.
I know, if you ever wanted to pop in, I know Shujin would be over the moon. So, but yeah, there's that. Next week we'll be here, of course. I'm looking to do a kind of laid back Christmas show with some fellow podcasters and just talk about Christmassy stuff. So I'm not sure who's going to be appearing yet. I'm looking to see who's available. And now the following Monday, of course, is Christmas Day. There won't be a show on Christmas Day. I could, but I'm hosting Heathen Christmas. So, and these fine ladies will be busy. So, yeah, no show that week. We'll be back the following week, and we'll let you know what's up with that then. So, and before we go, as always, I do want to take a minute and mention the Whitefields Educational Foundation. They provide counseling for people who have left or are leaving religion. And David Michael, formerly of my Book of Mormon podcast, started the Taylor Scholarship, and that provides funding for people who would like counseling but are unable to afford it. So we find that to be a great charity too. If you have any more extra money you want to throw at it, that'd be greatly appreciated. That's at whitefieldseducational.org/My Book of Mormon podcast. And we do have a Patreon of our own, and we use that money to fund our hosting on Spreaker when it fucking works. And any other miscellaneous web hosting and all that fun stuff. So, it's the time of year. I know people don't have much money, but any little bit helps. So we appreciate anybody who can throw us a buck or two as well. And I just switched to monthly donations, partly to kind of offset. They've changed how they charge for things right now. And so you can do as little as $1 a month if you want. Every little bit helps. So thank you for that. So until next week, and again, thank you, Richard, for joining us. No outro tonight. Well, unless you're listening podcast, in which case I'll be closing out listening to the Human Creed for Mankind, as we usually do. Other than that, good night, everybody.